Chapter 11. Variables in Python. Peter followed Python's instructions for the next few days as he taught Peter about his own language. Of course, I think it's the best, he said, but it's also one of the easiest to learn and have lots of uses, so whatever you may need to do, you'll probably be able to do it. After their lessons, Python cooked the evening meal. Zeta came over after work, but it was usually late before she turned up. Zeta looked pretty tired yesterday, said Peter, for the third time, as he sat on the table and leafed through Python's folders on the attacks. You said Python, as he turned down the pasta, glanced again at the cookbook that lay open on the surface, and then searched through the drawers for further ingredients. I didn't want to disturb you, but they thought there was another attack yesterday. Peter suddenly got to his feet. It's okay, said Python, and waved him back down. It turned out to be a house fire. No one was hurt, but everyone is still blaming her. Why? Asked Peter. They're scared. They're looking for someone to blame, and she's there. What makes it worse is that she blames herself. Peter continued to turn the pages, but he could no longer focus on the words. She always did, he muttered. Python turned round. Sorry? What? I said she always did. Blamed herself, that is. Her mother said that she should have called her Judy, after St. Jude, patron saint of desperate cases and lost causes. Talking of desperate cases, said Python. He pointed a spatula at the folders in front of Peter on the table. Have you found anything useful in those? Maybe, said Peter. He turned a few pages. I'm trying to find a pattern, but these are missing important details. He picked out a folder and held it up. When I was with Zeta, she told me that this house had been destroyed by a boot sector virus. But that isn't mentioned in here. Only pictures of the houses before and after, with descriptions about the poor chap. Python turned back to the stove and stirred the pasta again. Sorry, said Peter. You knew him, didn't you? Python let out a big sigh. We weren't close, but I'd known him for years. He was a nice guy. He didn't deserve to go like that. How does Zeta know it was a boot sector virus? No idea. You can ask her, he said as the doorbell rang. He got up and let Zeta in. They'd learned not to ask too many questions with Zeta when she had just arrived. A drink, some food, and let her talk herself down from the day. But after the meal, afterwards, Peter asked her how she knew about the boot sector virus. It was the last message from Algol, she told them. His house was being destroyed when he sent Cobol a message. He'd already discovered that the first row of houses had been destroyed by a worm. That's all we know. I told you this on the first day, she said to Peter. Yeah, but what about the other attacks? What caused them? Asked Peter. When did each attack take place? He picked up the folder. These don't have any dates, just the order of each attack. That's classified, said Zeta. I don't see how that could help. Peter sat back. Well, I don't either, he said frustrated. But that isn't the point. It's information that may be useful. Perhaps there's a connection that we're missing, a link between the attacks that'll help us find the hacker. Peter let Zeta and Python talk for a few minutes. He rested his head against the wall and stared across the room, unfocused. Then he made up his mind. He sat back upright and said, I'm going out tomorrow. I've been stuck in too long. Where are you going? Asked Zeta. He gave her a wry smirk. I want to look at the attack sites. I'm going to measure the extent of the attacks. Peter, no, said Zeta. It's too dangerous. Let one of us go. Listen, replied Peter. Algol got attacked sitting inside his house. I'm no safer here than anywhere else in town. He felt trapped. I'd rather go and do something than sit here and wait for the hacker to come to me. I'm going. She pursed her lips. Oh, I nearly forgot. She handed him a small laminated card. Here's your ID, Mr. Michael Cobb. You may need it. Peter turned the card over in his hand. He then asked Python, Can I borrow your bike? You can borrow it, but it's rubbish. Thanks. Well, that's settled. Thanks for the meal. He stood up and pocketed the ID and cleared the table, washed the dishes and tidied the kitchen. He was aware that they both looked at him and had a silent conversation behind his back. Would anyone like coffee? He asked eventually. They both shook their heads. Well then, good night. Thanks again for the lovely meal, Python. He went upstairs, but couldn't fall asleep. He heard Zeta leave about an hour later. While he lay there, a plan had formed in his head. The following morning, Python was uncharacteristically cheery. He asked a few pointed questions, to which Peter gave him vague answers. Have you got a small notebook I could use? Asked Peter. Python looked like he wanted to say something, but he left the room and returned a few minutes later with a small notebook and a jacket because, he said, it looks like rain. He then wheeled his bike around to the front. Peter was used to modern bikes, but this looked like something from the future. It flew along, and he felt free for the first time since he'd arrived back in town. The rain showers were infrequent and light, and he enjoyed being outside and liked the feel of the elements on his face. He first went to rediscover the town. He was shocked by some of the changes, but also delighted by the familiar landmarks. He flew past the museum, the library, and the old government buildings in the town square. As always, the town had an almost comical mixture of old and the new. The fashion, cars, and the attitudes of the people came from decades before, but there was an odd blend of modern technology. Few people had mobile phones, but everyone rode carbon fibre bikes, received weather reports from huge video screens, and the public transport was excellent. He eventually headed out towards the site of the first attack, the row of houses destroyed by the email worm. It reminded Peter of pictures of a city after an air raid. While many of the walls were still standing, most of the windows had gone, the roofs caved in, and the odd front wall had been blown out. He stared at that strange sight of seeing into someone's bedroom that had no wall, still decorated, pictures on the wall and a cover on the bed, like a full-size doll's house. Somehow, he thought, the worst thing was that people passed on the other side of the street and barely glanced at the houses. The destruction was commonplace, almost boring. Peter leant the bike against the wall and paced the length of the damage. About 57.5 paces long and 11 paces deep. He got out the small pocketbook and added the location and the area of the damage. With one look back at the houses, he picked up the bike and cycled off to the next location. The town had many changes from 4 years ago, but the structure of the town was the same. Without really thinking, he managed to find his way from site to site. His sense of direction seemed to be automatic. If you'd asked him to give you directions before he'd started, he was not sure he could have described the route, but the correct turning always seemed to be obvious as each new decision presented itself. When he reached the 6th site, he parked the bike as usual and walked over to the crater, where there had been a water main that had supposedly collapsed. There was police tape around the site that kept people away from the edge. He decided that he would measure the circumference of the hole, and he had paced about a quarter of the way round when a stranger came up to him. "Awful, isn't it?" said the stranger. Peter gave a slight nod. He moved off and continued to walk around the edge. He had barely gone halfway when the stranger was once again at his elbow. "I come here most days," he said to Peter. Peter tried to concentrate. He counted the steps. 22, 23, 24. "Really?" 25, 26. The stranger walked in front of him and held out his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Bill Dixon, and you are?" Peter did not like the smile the man gave. "Hi, I'm Mike," he said, and stepped to one side. In one swift movement, Bill got out a badge and held it up to Peter's face. He stopped and read the police ID. It looked genuine, but Peter hadn't anything to compare it by. Bill put the badge away and said, "Well, that's who I am. Do you carry anything that tells me who you are?" Peter dug into his pocket and took out his wallet. He opened it and removed the ID that Zeta had given him last night and handed it over. He saw that Bill stared at the bank card that peeped over the top section of his wallet, a card from a bank that didn't exist in the town. He hurriedly put it away. The police officer looked at the card and smiled, handed it back to Peter. Peter was not sure what to do, so he stuck the card back in his pocket. He continued around the hole in the ground, walked back to the bike and cycled off. A glance over his shoulder confirmed that Bill hadn't followed him. He decided to lie low. He went into the cafe with large windows and sat there for an hour and watched for any unusual activity. He saw nothing. He felt a little shaken, but decided that with only 2 more sites to visit, he would risk at least 1 more. This time he cycled by a few times and looked out for anyone official. Satisfied that the place was clear, he paced the site. An office in an old building. The corner had fallen away, and the walls were now braced with large pieces of timber and metal props. The site was actually quite small, so Peter only took a few moments to take his measurements. He returned to the bike, swung a leg over the crossbar, and noticed the same police officer. Bill walked towards Peter, with his hands behind his back, and that same smirk on his lips. "Well, I think I deserve an explanation." Bill cocked his head. "Don't you?" Peter tried to look relaxed, but he set up the bike for a quick start. "Hello again. I'm here to look at the subsidence." Bill looked round at the office and then back at Peter. His smirk was really annoying. "That's an odd accent. So what part of town are you from?" Peter decided to use his childhood home. "Green Street." Bill looked at him quizzically. "You're kidding." "I was brought up round there." He scratched his head. "Now what was the name of that road that crossed Green Street?" "Catherine Street," said Peter. He was sure that the police officer knew the name. "Oh, yeah. Happy times. Do you grow up there? Uh-huh, said Peter. He refused to be drawn. Me too, said Bill. What was the school called there? Green Street School, said Peter. He was irritated that he was being checked out. Said Bill. He looked directly at Peter. So why do you have a bank card of a bank from off? Peter had expected it. Found it in the river. I like stuff from off. Bill looked serious. Hand it over. I need to check it out. Peter felt his heart thump. Now, officer, I'm not daft. If I get my wallet out in front of a police officer, you'll accuse me of offering you a bribe. Is what I've done illegal? Bill stared at him. He could tell that he wasn't happy, and he felt that it wasn't a good idea to make a police officer unhappy. Stay here, said Bill. He walked off and went to talk to someone else. Peter presumed that this was another officer. He looked at both of them, aware that they'd decided his fate right then. He shifted in his seat and weighed up the risks of doing a runner. Bill walked back over and smiled. OK, you can go. Peter turned to go, and instead the officer said, Oh, Peter. Peter turned back and said, It's Mike, actually. The smirk fell from the officer's face, and he walked off. Peter decided that it was best to leave quickly before he changed his mind. He took a long route back. He stopped every 15 minutes to check he wasn't being followed, and arrived back as it got dark. At about 7 p.m. that evening, there was a knock at the door. Peter checked and saw Zeta standing outside. He let her in. She looked worried. Oh, God, she said as soon as she saw Peter. They've taken Python. What? Said Peter. Why? Where is he? Zeta muttered, I'm not sure. She looked tired and upset. Without thought, Peter immediately went over and put his arm round her. It felt both familiar and strange. The front door opened and Python walked in. Zeta immediately jumped back from his embrace. Peter felt the rejection. It took him a while to realise what Python's sudden appearance signified. I was so worried. What happened? Said Zeta. They arrested me around noon, asked me a load of stupid questions I didn't know the answer to, and then let me go. He looked over to Peter. They know someone's come into the town from off. I don't think they bought my expression of surprise. I don't think they believe me either, said Peter. What? They both said. This afternoon, when I was looking around at the attack sites, I got stopped twice. He was shocked by the expressions. It's fine, he said, more to calm then than because he felt it. It's not fine, said Zeta. She looked worried. Why did they stop you? It's okay. They think I'm someone else. They thought it was suspicious, someone checking out the attack sites. It wasn't serious. Zeta looked concerned, which irritated Peter. Honestly, Zeta, it's fine. Well, I think we should lay low for a couple of days, she said. Python nodded, his head in agreement. No, said Peter. I need this information now. Waiting serves no purpose. He didn't look convinced. Zeta, you wanted me to help. Well, I need you to help me. I need those dates, the ones about when the attacks took place. But they're in the office, said Zeta. As long as you can get hold of them. Python. He looked nervously at Python. Why did Cobol send the information to Algol? Python chewed his lower lip. When I arrived in town, Peter continued, Cobol was looking pretty upset. I think she may know a lot more. I think Algol was sharing all the information with her. Do you know her? Of course, said Python. She's a cousin. Well, I want you to go there tonight. Find out what you can. Python looked at Zeta, who nodded. Hold on, said Zeta. What if we get stopped with the information? They'll take it as evidence. Then they'll get nothing. They're bound to be watching us. Peter thought for a few moments. Zeta's government car would never do. Python's bike was too slow. Are there still 3 taxi companies in town? Yeah. OK, we use the taxis to hold the information. They'll be after us, not what's in the taxis. Get the data, and then Zeta, you take a black taxi. Python, you take a green, and I'll have to find a yellow one that actually works. Call the taxi for, let's say, 10:30. Place your information. Went into the kitchen and retrieved 3 empty folders. Place it in a folder and then hide it in the car. Under the driver's seat is probably safest. Then give directions to somewhere away from the centre. Then we'll send all the taxis to a pickup point, somewhere I know and can get to. Say, by the statue in the town square, suggested Zeta. Perfect. Then it doesn't matter if they stop us. We'll be clear. I'll leave Python's bike nearby. I'll meet all 3 taxis and be away before they know what's happened. How will you beat the taxi on a bike? Asked Python. Well, if I get dropped off on the other side of the park by the old cricket pavilion, I can cross the park by bike quicker than the taxi will take to go around the whole thing. Anyone following won't know I have the bike, and by then it'll be too late. I'll be away. Peter, this is a rubbish plan. Yep, said Peter. It's just better than all the rest. Still, he removed all of the ID he had on him, except for the Michael Cobb card.